Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into something that's probably on all of our minds, the future of organizations and work.
It's a pretty wild time to be navigating a career, that's for sure.
It really is. Remember when the dream was a stable job? You climb the ladder and then retire with a gold watch?
Yeah, it feels like a completely different world, doesn't it?
Definitely not the reality anymore.
Mhm.
So, to help us unpack all of this, we're turning to some really interesting insights from an applied psychology textbook.
It's a fascinating look at how organizations actually function and what's changing, even as we speak.
And this isn't just some abstract academic stuff. This deep dive is about your world, your career, your future, what's in store for all of us.
Exactly. And one of the things I found really interesting was how the source challenged some of the common assumptions about globalization.
Oh, you mean how everyone always talks about these massive corporations taking over the world?
Yeah, like that's the only way globalization plays out. But the source points out that it's actually becoming a lot more diverse and fluid, less about these giant multinational enterprises.
So it's not just about like corporate empires anymore. What's the source say is happening instead?
Well, they use this phrase, management via the web, which I thought was interesting. It's this idea that work is becoming a lot more flexible. Virtual teams are the new norm.
Okay, hold on. Management via the web. For those of us who don't speak fluent corporate jargon, what does that actually mean?
Basically, it means working with people all over the place, often online, rather than in that traditional rigid hierarchy.
Ah, I see. So less about climbing the corporate ladder and more about navigating a network, right?
Exactly. And this new way of working has huge implications. It's actually shattered the old psychological contract between employees and employers.
The old psychological contract. You mean that unwritten agreement about what you expect from your employer and what they expect from you?
Exactly. In the past, it was like this unspoken agreement.
Yeah.
You stay loyal to the company, you put in the hours, and they'll take care of you. Job security, a
Yeah.
decent pension, maybe even the gold watch at the end.
Yeah, but that's so clearly not the case anymore for a lot of people. Downsizing, the gig economy, technology changing everything so rapidly.
Right. So the old psychological contract is out the window for many people.
So, what does this new psychological contract look like? I mean, if I'm out there or if our listeners out there trying to navigate this new world of work, what are the new rules of the game?
Well, the source makes the case that it's less about job security, holding on to the same job for life. It's much more about building your own employment security,
Meaning,
meaning you have to be adaptable, a lifelong learner. You have to constantly be updating your skills, learning new things to stay ahead of the curve.
it's almost like you have to think of yourself as a mini enterprise. You're in charge of your own career destiny in a way that previous generations maybe weren't.
Exactly. You're the CEO of you, Inc., in this new world of work.
Okay, so we've talked about globalization changing, hierarchies dissolving, kind of a lot to absorb.
It is. And on top of all of that, we have to factor in technology, which is a whole other layer of complexity.
Right. And the source really emphasizes how technology is like this double-edged sword when it comes to the world of work.
They call it creative destruction,
Hmm.
which I think perfectly captures the dynamic. Essentially, technology eliminates certain types of jobs.
Like robots coming for our jobs.
Well, kind of, but it's not quite that simple. The source uses a great example to illustrate this. Think about the steam engine.
Oh, right. Revolutionized transportation, but also put a lot of people who worked with horses and carriages out of work.
Exactly. But then, the steam engine led to the growth of the automotive industry, which created a whole slew of new jobs. Manufacturing, repair, you name it.
So it's not just about jobs disappearing, it's also about new opportunities emerging that we maybe couldn't even imagine before.
Right. Like ATMs.
Yeah.
They replaced a lot of bank tellers, but then led to huge growth in software development, cybersecurity, all kinds of tech-related jobs.
So this isn't about fearing technology, it's about understanding that it's going to change things up and being ready to adapt.
Adaptation is key.
And it's not like technology is just in some specific industries anymore. It's everywhere.
Ubiquitous computing. That's the term they use in the source. It means having like your entire office in your pocket.
Your phone, basically.
Exactly. And that can be amazing, right? You can connect with anyone, work from anywhere, collaborate on projects.
But then there's also that potential downside of always being on. Like, what about constant electronic monitoring or work-life boundaries just completely dissolving because you're always connected?
All very real concerns. And actually, the source cites research showing that something as simple as after-hours emails can lead to a lot more stress.
You mean like checking work emails when you're supposed to be off the clock?
Exactly. It might seem small, but studies show that can actually lead to higher levels of anger and work-family conflict, people feeling resentful, burned out.
So it's almost like technology gives us all these tools to be more efficient, more connected.
But it also makes it harder to set boundaries, to switch off,
Right. So maybe part of navigating this new world of work is figuring out how to use technology in a way that empowers us.
without letting it completely take over our lives.
Exactly, which is a whole other skill set, honestly. But technology isn't the only thing transforming how we work. The source also digs into these massive demographic shifts that are impacting organizations.
Like the aging workforce, for example.
Mm.
In lots of developed countries, people are working longer, and at the same time, birth rates are declining.
Right, so you've got this whole wave of experienced workers getting ready to retire, but not as many young people entering the workforce to replace them.
And then you also have to factor in increasing diversity in the workplace.
Mhm.
More women in the workforce, different cultural background.
And the source actually pointed out that there are now 5 different generations in the workforce at the same time,
5.
which has never happened before. From the silent generation, who lived through World War II.
All the way to Gen Z, who've grown up with smartphones in their hands from day one. It's pretty wild to think about.
So we've got globalization 2.0, management by web, robots coming for our jobs, but hopefully just making them more interesting, and a 5-generation workforce. It's a lot to process.
It is, and on top of all of that, we have to factor in mental health, which is a whole other layer of complexity.
Right. And the source really emphasizes how mental health is like this issue we can't ignore in the workplace.
It's not just a buzzword. The source makes a strong case that organizations need to prioritize mental health, especially given everything we've been through in recent years.
And they go beyond just saying mental health is important. They lay out 4 concrete pillars of a mental health-friendly workplace: awareness, accommodations, assistance, and access.
I think for a lot of people, just hearing those words, accommodations, assistance, access signals, a real shift. It's
Yeah.
about moving beyond lip service to creating a workplace where people feel genuinely supported.
Right. It's one thing to say we're aware of mental health, but then you also need things like flexible work arrangements, stress reduction programs.
Absolutely. And access to resources like employee assistance programs. It's about recognizing that everyone goes through tough times and it's okay to ask for help.
It sounds like organizations are being challenged to step up and create a work environment that truly supports the well-being of their employees.
Exactly. And that's not just good for employees, it's good for business. When people feel supported, they're more engaged, more productive, more creative.
Okay, so let's bring it all home for our listeners. We've covered a lot of ground today, from globalization to technology to the importance of mental health. What's the one big takeaway you want them to remember as they navigate this new world of work?
If I had to distill it down to one thing, I'd say this. The future of work belongs to those who are adaptable, resilient, and committed to lifelong learning. Develop in-demand skills, embrace change, and never stop being curious.
And don't forget to set those boundaries. Just because you can work 24/7 doesn't mean you should. Your well-being is paramount.
Well said. Your well-being is an investment, not a luxury. It's the foundation that allows you to thrive in this new world of work.
I love that. So much to ponder, so much to explore. We've only scratched the surface today, but hopefully this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and sparked your curiosity. Remember, the future of work is what we make it, so go out there and make it yours.